Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the third act of the Gershwin Week in honor of Elton John and our speaker tonight, Bernie Taupin. Let's have a hand for her. This is part of our Live at the Library events, and we would like to welcome all of you and all of you who are watching from afar on our live streamed broadcast. Please mark your calendars for April 8th to watch the PBS broadcast of the wonderful tribute concert in their honor, and you will, believe me, definitely want to see it. So, April 8th, PBS. The library's music division and its staff are among the crown jewels of our extraordinary institution. And you probably, when you think of the Library of Congress, wonder how many books we have. But we have much more than books. And our mission is to collect and preserve this material for posterity, to keep it safe for the American people. In the music division, we have over 25 million items, and including symphonies, operas, other classical music, notes on paper, literary manuscripts, microforms, and copyright deposits, and many fantastic musical instruments, including 6 Stradivari instruments. And since the memorable visit of Lizzo, I'm sure you all remember that we have James Madison's crystal flute. So what is particularly amazing is that we collect the papers of important composers and artists in the fields of music, dance, and theater. We are particularly rich in American composers and songwriters, papers, and music, from Irving Berlin's manuscript for God Bless America to the papers of the maestro, Leonard Bernstein, Oscar Hammerstein, Jonathan Larson, Jesse Norman. The library has received an amazing array of materials that collectively chronicle centuries of human achievement in music, culture, and arts. The generosity and big-heartedness of many have built your nation's library. Of course, I must make mention of one of the most prized collections in our division, and the inspiration and guiding light for the Gershwin Prize for Popular Song, the collections of George and Ira Gershwin. The collection contains such classics as Rhapsody in Blue, which just celebrated its 100th anniversary. I hope some of you have noticed that. And the musical manuscripts from Gershwin's stage and screen shows, such as American in Paris, Lady Be Good, Funny Face, and a wealth of manuscripts, printed music, photographs, correspondence, business papers, scrapbooks, and iconography. I don't know if any of you are aware, but both George and Ira were artists of some merit. And if you go to the Gershwin Gallery across the hall, you will see self-portraits of them in that room. And I particularly recommend Ira's portrait. Our collections are open to all, and I invite you to come and take advantage of them either in person or online at loc.gov. So, the Library of Congress Gershwin Prize for Popular Song is reserved for and granted to the musicians, songwriters, and singers who have reached the highest levels of musical achievement. And tonight, we are to hear from one such paragon, Bernie Taupin, whose storytelling talent found a mate in Elton's ability to take Bernie's stories and create combined magic and decades-long partnership and friendship, which actually is just as important an amazing story. Tonight we have the pleasure of hearing from the man himself. You are about to enjoy a very special conversation between two amazing people. The man with a head full of stories, Bernie Taupin, and our own special celebrity, the 14th Librarian of Congress, Dr. Carla Hayden. Thank you. Oh, take it. Take it.
Thank you. Ladies first.
Thank you, sir. Oh, this is exciting. This has been quite a few days.
How is everybody? Good.
Quite a few days. And true librarian. True librarian. Well, here we are. We have had quite a visit last few days, and everything this week has been about you being part of a team with the Gershwin Prize.
Thank you.
And so now that the other guy's gone, can we focus on you?
Easy to get rid of.
Okay. Can we focus on you?
Happy to.
All right. Let's do it, because a friend of mine said and sent me an email, and they heard that I was going to have the pleasure of talking with you. And this is a person who loves words. It says it's easier to throw around figures like hundreds of millions, but when it comes to Bernie, it's a fact. Through his music collaboration, his lyrics have touched and continue to touch millions of people throughout the world and multiple generations. And you all should clap for that. Now, this is a long-winded friend who loves words. One example was this. In 2022, when U.S. figure skater Nathan Chang chose music and lyrics written or co-written by him to accompany skaters' program at the Beijing Olympics. The music the 23-year-old Chan selected was originally recorded and released almost 50 years ago, before that evening's competition, and more than 25 years before he was born. In front of one of the largest television viewerships in the world, Nathan Chan won the gold and helped introduce the lyrics of Bernie to a whole new audience of fans.
I didn't know that.
23-year-old, soaring, doing all that.
That's amazing.
His double lutzes and his quadruples were all punctuated by your words. How does that make you feel?
I have to stop sometime and take a breath, because obviously things like that are extremely encouraging to hear. But I do my best not to be too overwhelmed by praise of any sort. I just enjoy doing what I do, and being in a situation like this in the last 3 days, well, it's coming on for 3 days now. It's just been an extraordinary ride, and to be in a house that encompasses so much like the Library of Congress. It's almost, I mean, the things that I've seen since I've been here are just completely staggering and completely put you in your place. So right now, any sort of praise is just in the minority compared to the majority of things that I've seen in the Library of Congress, things that it boggles the mind to know that they exist still, things that influenced me, influenced Elton, influenced us as a unit together. I mean, extraordinary things. And the way that and I'm probably going off point here, but I think
No.
this is more important because I don't want to talk about praise for myself. That's completely unimportant in this environment. And this environment, I'm telling you, puts you in your place. You go into the Library of Congress and you see the history in there, and you see the people that have come before us, and it makes you feel incredibly small.
Bernie, I have to stop you. All
I
right.
told you I'd ramble on.
No, it's not about the rambling. It's about realizing that there is a reason why you are here, and that you are now here in this.
But, and not to interrupt again,
Well,
but
we
the
can interrupt each other.
reason I am here is because of those things that are enshrined in the Library of Congress. I mean, when I went there on our first evening here, and the beautiful thing was that your staff curated it purposely for my viewing pleasure. So to see things there like the original lyrics to El Paso by Marty Robbins, Big Iron, you know, there was a wonderful thing that happened when we were in the Library of Congress, and the blue touch paper for me that made me want to write songs was Marty Robbins, El Paso, the song. Not only that, but the album that it came from, which was called Gunfighter Ballads and Trail Songs, and still one of, you know, the most important records to me of my life. But they had the original lyrics to Big Iron, which is the lead-off track on that particular album. And my 16-year-old daughter looked over my shoulder and saw those lyrics, and she goes, I can't tell you how many times I've heard that song. Because she grew up listening to it on my jukebox. And she could sing, you know, she said, I could sing every lyric of that. But I just want to, it's important to make that point because, again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but all of those things in there are the catalysts to why I am who I am today and what I do today. To see, like, the original 78 of Lonnie Donegan's version of Huddie Ledbetter's Rock Island Line, you know, when I saw that in the Library of Congress, that brought me back to a little house in the suburbs of London where I discovered that 78 when I was 12 years old. And I played that, and I just thought, you know, back then I thought the guy that sang it wrote it, you know, and they made it up. I didn't know anything about making records or writing songs. I didn't know what the names in parentheses underneath the title of the song meant. I didn't even know how you wrote a song. But those things, all of those things that are in the Library of Congress are the reason that I'm here.
So there were other things then that you saw and influenced you. What were some of those things that they saw?
In the Library of Congress?
That you saw, that they curated for you.
Again, all of the things that pertain to the Great American Songbook. You know, Oscar Hammerstein's lyrics. You know, seeing his ideas for my favorite things.
Oh.
You know, just extraordinary. Like, you know, he obviously was going, okay, what are my favorite things? And he'd just make... And all of the things you've heard in the song are just a fraction of the things that he wrote down on this yellow legal pad. And I mean, when you see that, or if you see the original lyrics to, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, or Someone to Look Over Me, you know, it's mind-blowing. And all of that stuff is in one place. So again, those things, there were so many things that pertain to my appreciation of arts on every level.
And what about the West? And
well, that goes hand in hand with again with it's sort of a. Back then, you know, everybody called it country and western. You know, nobody calls it that anymore. Now it's just country, you know, and it's not really country anymore either, is it? But that's all a matter of taste, I guess. But, yeah, it was a fusion of American Western history of the 1800s and this music. But the thing that going back to like that particular song, El Paso, when I growing up in England in the 1950s and early 60s, I mean, you didn't hear like country music on the radio. You did, but it was really watered down country. And not to disparage any of the particular artists, but it was more people, like Eddie Arnold and Jim Reeves. There wasn't any cutting edge country. You didn't hear Johnny Cash. You didn't hear Merle Haggard. The earliest things I remember that impressed me were all story songs. Things that the first record I heard of that ilk was Johnny Horton's North to Alaska. And then people like Lefty Frizzell, Saginaw, Michigan, they were story songs. And those were the things that, I loved rock and roll, don't get me wrong, but there was something about the American West that just appealed to me and still appeals to me to this day. It's why I live here, it's why I've lived here over half of my life. And it means so much to me, and it meant so much to me then because it gave me a sort of cinematic way of looking at life. And I wanted to, again, as I said, when I heard those songs that told stories, I always wanted to write stories. That was the most important thing to me. But when I heard those songs, I went, wow, there's a way here that you can actually tell these stories and sing them. And what I needed to do was find somebody who could create the other 50% of the magic.
Well, that worked out.
And luckily,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I got him.
Well,
Now I can't get rid of it.
Okay. And then
I'm stuck.
Yeah, I think you after 50 years or so,
56, I think
56.
now. We keep saying 50, and then it keeps getting one more, one more,
Yeah.
one more.
One more. And that process, and that's what you talk about quite a bit, both of you, about it's the words first.
Yeah, it always has been. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it,
Yeah.
But then, the squeaky wheel gets the oil too. So maybe there's a strange, I don't know. It literally has always worked like that. I mean, it's not uncommon. I mean, it's been done, the greatest American song. The interesting thing about going back to the Library of Congress and the Great American Songbook, those guys were real songwriters in the purest sense of it. Whereas I've never really thought of myself. I don't think of myself as a songwriter. I think of myself as a storyteller. I think calling myself a songwriter is cheating a little because I'm the story part of the song. I have nothing to do with the melodic sense of it. So, having said that, when you think of those guys, the Rodgers and Hammerstein and all these people, it's that the prime sense of the songwriters together at the piano, with the loosened ties and the coffee and the
and
cigarettes
else,
and
yeah.
this maybe think about putting this here. Yeah. Try that. Yeah, do that.
Well, that's the movies.
That really doesn't exist anymore. That's the real American songbook prototype. And what I do it in a solitary sense. Everything I do is pretty solitary. But I love to write and I love to tell stories. And it's not poetry. I loathe it being called poetry.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Because I understand, and someone asked me, they're doing a documentary on you, which is really cool. And they said, well, would you consider him a poet? And what's the difference between storytelling and poetry? And I said, well, I'm going to ask him tonight. Because I couldn't
Well, it's
come
easy.
up with
What
it.
I do is not poetry. So that's the answer.
Well, yeah, I just, okay.
I mean,
But how are the lyrics? Because they're truncated. It's not a story. You're a storyteller, but you have to, there's a form.
But again, going back to the whole American songbook thing, nobody called those guys poets. They called them songwriters, and they were proud to be songwriters. I don't think any of those guys were faced with people saying, oh, this is poetry. And that happens now, and it's the wrong analogy. It's completely the wrong analogy. There are certain artists that I think could be regarded as poets, but they're usually people that actually are poets. Like Leonard Cohen is the perfect example, because Leonard Cohen was a poet. You know, people go, Bob Dylan's a poet. Yeah, some of that early stuff may have, but the early stuff, no, it wasn't poetry, it was folk music. And it became an elevated sort of folk music, but it's not poetry. Poetry is a completely different animal, and if people want to call it that, then that's fine. But I think it's you're painting things with the wrong brush. You know, we shouldn't be. It's too high a bar to set, and I don't want my stuff to be regarded as that. I want my things to be regarded as stories. Storytelling. If you want to call them lyrics, fine, the lyrics, but no.
Okay. You just did it. You just said it. And do you consider yourself a songwriter? You're a storyteller.
I'm a storyteller.
And you
I like to be, there's a little bit of a cinematographer in me too, but yeah, I'm a storyteller. I hope I am anyway. You know, it's, all of those songs, you know, they come from different places. And some of them are more direct, and some of them are sort of obscure and a little harder to understand. But the things that are harder to understand, that is the beauty of those things, is all in the mind of the listener. You shouldn't have to explain your songs. I always say that a lot of songs are the ones that are a bit more esoteric. It's a bit like, I always say it's like abstract art. You know, when you go into a museum and you see whether it's a Mark Rothko or Jackson Pollock, you know, there's the image of people standing in front and going, you know, it's like when Andy Warhol always used to, when people asked him what he meant by a particular painting or why he did it, he'd go, what does it mean to you? And that's it in a nutshell, you know. In my book there, in the preface, I quote Lou Reed where he said, just because I wrote it doesn't mean I know what it's about. And I completely subscribe to that. Paul Simon said, you know, people come up to him and say, well, explain what their idea of a song is, a lyric to something he wrote. And he said, well, sometimes it's more interesting than my original idea, you know. So, yeah, it should be that. You shouldn't have to explain everything. Let people use their imagination, you know, and hopefully they do that with a lot of our songs. Not to say they're all like that, but if it's a Madman Across the Water or something, like there are so many different perceived ideas about what, you know, people used to think it was about Richard Nixon, you know, because it was written at the time of Watergate, and so, which again is a great idea, but it's not, you know, but it's a cute idea.
I'm going to leave that one totally alone. I was imagining some things with that one, but no, sir. Now, you mentioned art, and kind of, you're a visual artist. Now,
Yes.
how does that, and when did that start coming?
Oh, that's been going since the early 90s, you know. In fact, I'm going from here tomorrow to Palm Beach for Art Palm Beach because they're exhibiting a lot of my stuff there, which is thrilling. But yeah, visual art is a huge part of my life. In fact, I probably spend more time. You know, the thing is, I think people have this image of me that I write songs every day. I very, very rarely write songs. I mean, we write songs when we're going to make a record. I'm, you know, there are songwriters like people like Diane Warren, who's a great songwriter, but she's a professional songwriter. She goes in every day and goes to work, you know, like the old guys, you know, from the American Songbook. I am nothing remotely like that. You know, I maybe write one song every. If we're making a record, then yes, I go to work. But I don't do it every day. You know, I spend much more time on my visual art than I do thinking and writing songs, thinking about writing songs.
And you famously can write them pretty fast.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of urban myth about those.
Okay, let's clear this up. Let's clear this up.
The
There's
thing is,
10
it
minutes for this and now
it
that.
tends to go shorter and shorter. You know, people go, "Oh, I heard you wrote your song in 10 minutes." You know, it's like whispering in somebody's ear, and it goes along and it goes along, and it gets shorter and shorter. You know, no, I didn't write your song in 10 minutes. It was probably 15. You know, but. But it does, you know. I suppose in different writers, some writers agonize for months over a song. We're far more immediate, you know. I mean, I think I spend probably a little bit more time than Elton does. Elton's very fast. He writes very quickly. He has to be inspired by something in the lyric or the title. You know, when we make a record, which is in the early days, you know, we made 2 albums, you know, back in the early 70s, we made 2 albums a year. So I was writing all the time then because I had to keep up. So we'd be just touring. We'd stop touring, we'd make a record, we'd go back on the road again, then come off again and make another record. So back then, that was the way things were. You'd you know, make 2 records a year. Now, you're lucky if we make 1 record every 10 years, you know. So you can imagine if you do the math, you see how much time I spend writing songs, right? But, you know, having said that, you always contradict yourself. I may go home tomorrow and write a song. But that's the great thing. That's the beauty of, you know, being spontaneous.
And the titles, do you?
Titles, I love titles for songs. That dates back to the days of when you go to record stores and you'd be fanning through the vinyl albums, and you'd pick up a record sleeve, and you'd look at the back and you'd look at the track listing. And I always was, you know, if there was a good title for a song that was an interesting title, then that would probably move me to maybe invest in the record, you know. But yeah, I like titles. I mean, I collect titles. I collect, you know, most of the songs that I write, my part of the writing, literally, I would say 90% of the time comes from an original idea for a title. So, but I could start in the middle of a song. I could write the chorus before I write the verse, or I might even write the bridge first. You know, it depends. Then I put it together. It's like a bit like a jigsaw puzzle.
And your writing, your physical writing. With that.
Oh yeah, no, it's funny because having said that I do all the lyrical part, to this day, I still write with a guitar. I always say it's a bit like Linus. It's like a security blanket. I mean, I'm a terrible guitar player. I mean, awful. I mean, I'm definitely 3 chords and the truth. But for some reason, it feels better to kind of gives me a melodic sense of rhythm for the lyrical rhythm of something. I didn't do that when I first started out, but as I say, when I first started out, I was flying by the seat of my pants because I really didn't know how to write a lyric. You know, I didn't know anything about verse, chorus, bridge. You know, I just basically it all just came out on the page, and Elton had to decipher what was what. But as I became more musically proficient over the years, you know, I learned how to write songs. Or when I say write song, I always say that, but I mean when I write the lyrical part. But now it's funny, it's almost like this, you know, I will sort of play a couple of chords and I'll sing something to myself. Then, yeah, I will. I'm happy to say that I do write longhand. But what I do is it's very scrawly because I'm doing this. And then it kind of moves around there, and then I have the computer. And when I get enough, I'll sort of type it out so I can get a better idea of how it's flowing. But I will so it's like guitar, legal pad, computer, finish.
You know our curators are salivating. Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I peeked at one of them and said, oh my gosh.
I've got many, many boxes of...
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Be careful. You
I
are-
love the fact
don't
too
say
that
that
so many of those things that I've seen in the last couple of days, the old yellow legal pad, man, it's been around a long
Long time. So that's what I'm saying. So be careful when you leave today.
Yeah.
Okay. 'Cause
Nothing here though, nothing here.
No,
Yeah.
no. So what happens in with the concert and things? There were different artists that were singing your songs.
You mean
How did it feel?
last night?
Yeah, because
Oh,
you've
it
been
was
covering when
extraordinary.
it
I
happens.
mean,
What
I
do you
don't.
feel?
Was anybody there last night? Okay. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. And one of the things that it's interesting because one of the things I was sitting with Elton at the front, and one of the things we were talking about continually throughout the night was how extraordinary the renditions of those songs were. I think it almost gave, and believe me, we've heard those songs a lot over the last 56 years, but you never get tired of hearing new interpretations of them. And the people last night really brought their A game. I mean, it was unbelievable. And as Elton said to me, he said, those songs are not easy to sing, you know, which I think, you know, I was talking to one of my friends over the last couple of days, and I was saying, I think that's one of the reasons we've had a lot of cover versions of our songs, but not as many as you might think. And I think that's because people kind of think of Elton's versions as the definitive, and they're maybe a little intimidated, you know, because they're not easy songs to sing. And I think that goes to show his brilliance as a composer. I mean, so hearing all of those songs from those wonderfully diverse acts last night, it was I mean this from the bottom of my heart. It was really, really extraordinary. And everybody was amazing. I mean, amazing.
There was one song, and I'm sorry, it's still hard for me to say it, about You Know Who Is Back.
It is back.
Okay. Talk about the perfect marriage of lyrics and performer, Billy Porter.
Oh, he was unbelievable.
Whoa.
Yeah, that one.
That was
That was something else.
something.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that Billy could sing that well. I mean, he just tore it up, man. It was unbelievable. I mean, but you know, Metallica, come on. How good were they, you know? And then, I don't know, again, you had to be there, but Jacob Lust, the kid from Gabriel's.
Oh my goodness.
God.
He did Benny,
and the Jets, and he did it like, I mean, he just was preaching, man.
It was bipartisan karaoke.
Oh.
It had everybody of different stripes, but it will be shown on.
It's going to be on PBS. I'm not
PBS,
sure of the exact
April 8th.
airing date. Do you know when it's going to be?
April 8th.
Oh, April 8th.
April 8th,
Okay.
and just check your local listings. And it's going to
Watch
be
April 8th.
quite something, and it's really something. Now, right after the eclipse. Uh-oh, another song coming. Could be.
I was trying to think of a good joke when you said that, and I didn't come up with anything. So
Here you go. It'll be a song. So, now, I did read the book, and, sorry, people, but he has a whole chapter on his love of books.
I have a whole chapter on what?
Your love of books.
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh. You collect historical children's books?
Well, I did. I
have
no
those?
longer do, but at one point I had one of the best collections in the world, yes, aside from the Library of Congress, of course.
So we're going
But yeah, I did have an extraordinary collection, and yeah, there is a chapter in the book. It's actually a chapter about my love for Graham Greene.
That's
and
what I wanted to
meeting
ask.
with Graham Greene, who, in my humble estimation, is probably the greatest writer of the 20th century. And so, again, that's another thing that's interesting, you know, because people always talk about their musical influences coming from other musical sources. And so much of my writing not only comes from musical sources, but it comes from literature too. I have farmed and mined, 20th century literature, and there's so much in our songs that come from classic literature, definitely. And Graham Greene probably more than most. A lot of my characters are certainly based on characters that he created.
And when you met him, how did that
Oh, it was
describe it?
one of the greatest moments in my life, outside of being given the Gershwin Award, of course.
And was he nice?
Yeah, I mean, people talk about, meeting their idols, their heroes. And it was a chance meeting, which was so amazing, but I don't want to go into detail. You have to buy the book.
All right.
But
Spoiler
yeah,
alert.
no, I mean, Frank Sinatra's great, Bo Diddley is great, Merle Haggard's great, but then there's like Graham Greene, and you kind of, I mean, it was extraordinary.
You mentioned Willie Dixon
Yeah,
and your relationship with him. I mean, you really.
he was like my black godfather. He was just an extraordinary human being. Probably the greatest blues songwriter, post-war blues songwriter, hands down. I mean, and it's an interesting story. I'll do it very briefly, but my 40th birthday party, I'm a huge jazz and blues fan, so you have to know that. But somebody, I think, in my management team said to me, well, we've invited all the people for your 40th birthday. Can you think of anybody else? And I was just being facetious. I said, yeah, I want Willie Dixon there. And, just thinking it was a joke. So I went to my 40th birthday party, and somebody pulled me inside and said, I want you to come upstairs a minute, because if somebody wants to meet you. And it was Willie Dixon. And it was like, okay, everybody else can go home, man. I'm. And we just hit it off. And for the last 2-3 years of his life, I mean, I spent time with his family, and his last surviving daughter is still one of my dearest friends now. And he was just, there are a handful of people who were huge influences on my life, and that I learned so much about life. And from him, I just learned he opened up so many doors for me, and he was so generous and just an extraordinary man. And as I say, probably the greatest blues songwriter of all time. So I can't say enough about him. And I was infuriated after he passed away. I found out that he wasn't in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. And I mean, blew a gasket. I mean, it was extraordinary that he wasn't in there. And of course, I called him up and said, I'm sending all my awards back if you don't put him in straight away. And I got him inducted, and I had the great honor of being able to induct him posthumously and be able to give his daughter the award. So that again, like Graham Greene, one of the most satisfying moments in my life.
And I would have loved to have been at the Hall of Fame and gotten that call. I wonder what that was like when they heard you say, and I'm giving back all of my stuff.
I was not happy, man.
That's probably
I tore
legendary.
him a new one.
Yeah, that's probably legendary. They probably still talk about that. They say, we'll never do. Yeah, it's like, remember when Bernie called?
Can you imagine that, though?
Yeah, I was thinking about it.
They got people in there that wrote a couple of hits in the 80s, and then and this is the guy that wrote, I mean, every like fledgling rock and roll band from the 60s, they wouldn't have a songbook if it wasn't for Willie Dixon. I mean, if you look up all the songs he wrote, it would blow your mind.
Well, you keep calling, folks, because we need that. We need that. So, I don't know if you could really talk about it, but who do you listen to now?
Who do I listen
Yeah.
to? I don't listen to much rock and roll or pop. I'm a huge jazz fan.
Okay.
Most of what I listen to is jazz. I listen to traditional country a lot, but I just love jazz. I mean, it's definitely my go-to. I appreciate all kinds of music. I really do. And the musical landscape. People, what bothers me is when people say, the music's not as good now as it was in the 70s. Yeah, or the Captain and Tennille, Christopher Cross, yeah, Milli Vanilli, yeah. Yeah, the music was so much better then. I mean, hello, did you see that lineup last night? Brandy Carlisle? Okay. I mean, she's like Elvis, man. She's like one of the greatest artists you could possibly, yeah, that whole thing. There's no good artists now. Give me a break. Sorry.
Now you said though that you're solitary and things, but your brain never shuts down.
No, it doesn't, which is why I'm exhausted because I haven't slept much since I've been here, Yeah, it doesn't shut down. I don't know. It's always moving. There's not enough room up there. But that's good because if 10% of what's in there comes out that's relatively decent, then I'm happy with that. I just can't seem to get rid of the rest of it. I always say, I wish I could use that, the part of your brain that never gets used. Now, as I say, I know that's a myth, but I wish that was true because I could use the extra space.
Well, that gives you something to think about. But I really was pleased and I got a chance to meet your wife and your lovely, lovely daughter.
Oh, thank you.
They were something, and you are dedicated to your family.
Absolutely, yeah. I've got another one too, but she's in Texas. It's at college.
How has that affected and
She's
impacted
a complete
your
cowgirl.
music? And how does their dedication to family, really impact your music and your?
Well, the lucky thing for me is that my music or our music has enabled me to raise my kids in a way that has given them sort of an opportunity to see life from all different angles. And I think the music that they've listened to growing up has given them a good sense of viewing the world, and they're incredibly level-headed. I'm absolutely committed and adore them. I'd take a bullet for them. They are remarkable, and I'm just blessed. The Lord has blessed me in so many ways, and there's nothing better than family.
Well, I mentioned your daughter because I had a pleasure of sitting next to her and watching her sing along, and some songs she just it was wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Just to see her.
So that means a great deal to me.
Oh, she was doing good. Well, I'm hesitating because now is the time I have to stop conversing with you and open it up to question and answer. I have to share you, Bernie.
How are we doing that?
Well, there are cards, and people are going to hand out cards. And while they're doing that, so just raise your hand if you'd like to let us know what you're thinking. And while you're doing that, I get to talk with you a little bit more.
We do have our first question.
Oh.
A disembodied voice, always a worry.
The voice of God. Yes.
Bernie.
Literally the voice of God. Okay, go ahead.
Is there a piece of writing that you revere above all else?
Well, okay, that's actually a really good question because it can be answered on different levels because you could answer musically, so, or you could answer, literally. So, off the top of my head, I'd say one of my favorite books of all time is a book called The Moon and Sixpence, which was written by Somerset Maugham, which is a book based on the life of Paul Gauguin, and the character in that book is a guy called Charles Strickland, a guy who is definitely flawed, but he is so moved by creating things that are beautiful. And I just absolutely adore that book. And I've read it countless times. And I know I talked about Graham Greene earlier, but I think if I had to pick a book, that would be it. That's a piece of writing that I absolutely never get tired of. But then I could mention like so many songs by Merle Haggard, who I, again, is probably one of my favorite artists of all time. But then I could talk about Duke Ellington, who moves me beyond any other kind of music. John Coltrane. Those are the things. That's just of my favorite things. Yeah, but thank you. Yeah, that's a really good question. So that's just a couple of things. But great art, going to the Museum of Modern Art in New York and losing myself for hours just looking at wonderful pieces of art. I can be moved to tears by art, but I can be moved to tears by music and writing too. So, I was moved to tears the other night when I heard Brandy Carlisle singing Skyline Pigeon, because I suddenly realized that actually it was a pretty good song. And I wrote that when I was 17 years old, and it didn't embarrass me. So, and she made it sound like it was an absolute classic, which I'm not sure if it is, but it certainly sounded like it last night.
Thank you.
I see a hand up there. It's very hard for me to see. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
How does the inspiration come to you? Is it in 1 minute you download everything, or do you struggle with it? And how does the process come?
Well, I think that actually kind of touches into the last question, because those are the things that I talked about. Those are the things that move me, and those are the things that inspire me. But I'm inspired by everyday life, by characters, by people. I'm the guy in the airport that watches everybody walking by and wonders, where they come from, where they're going, what do they do, what are they thinking. I'm the only guy that's not on his phone. So if you see me in an airport and I'm not on my phone, it's me. But I've always done that. Again, it's like being a cinematographer. It's like chronicling life, individuals, characters from books. I'm inspired by so many different things. But basically, the bottom line is I'm inspired by life.
On high.
If there was a Bernie who was not a songwriter, who would he be?
Probably a rodeo rider, but I'd be kind of too old for that now. The funny thing is, it's not quite the same question, but I have been asked by people, if you didn't do what you're doing now, what would you have done? What kind of profession would you have gone into? And I always thought I probably would have hated it, but I would have liked the creative part of it. I might have tried advertising, coming up with slogans for things,
Words.
like, Frosted Flakes, they're good. But no, I think that's kind of what I might have done, but I can't imagine myself not being in some form of the arts in one way or another. Definitely, yeah. Young, I can't.
You've had an amazing
I
career.
was just going to ask this lady here. Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, I've been sort of a lifelong fan of the music and the lyrics, and last night was just truly magnificent.
Thank you.
I actually brought my program from last night. Is there a possibility that you'd be willing at the end of this to send?
Well, now that's a question. Would you sign my book? Okay.
right,
So
next-
we'll deal with that a little later, okay? Because I'm sure there are a lot of other people that would like that same thing, and not just
What was the
book.
question coming from the magic box here?
Yeah. In fact, that's your name. Okay. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
In your experiences, as you are one of the most successful songwriters of all time, is there a singular experience that you reflect on that told you that you made it?
Oh. um, I've never stopped long enough to reflect on that. I was never, even in the first kind of, in the early days when we first experienced our first kind of success, I was not, Elton was like obsessed with following charts and record sales, and he's like a numbers guy, you know, and I never did. I never stopped still long enough to comprehend if where our record was in the charts. You know, if it was such, you know, now I don't know if it still happens, but, you know, oh, you're number 10 this week with a bullet. Those kind of things never entered my kind of orbit. It's interesting. I mean, yeah, it was. We were definitely not an overnight sensation. We definitely worked on it, and it took a long time. You know, people think we went to the Troubadour in Los Angeles in 1970 and were overnight sensations. It didn't happen like that. That was just regional. You know, we still had the entire world to conquer. We had, you know, the flyover states to deal with. We had the East Coast. You know, the review that the famous review that Robert Hilburn gave us in the LA Times, yeah, it filled seats for the rest of the week at the Troubadour, but it didn't make us overnight stars, as I think a lot of people assume. It was a lot of legwork, and so I think it was just a gradual process, and then suddenly one day you get to the point where, you know, you can't keep up the momentum of what you've achieved. I mean, we were the first act in history of Billboard magazine to have an album go straight into the charts at #1, which was the Captain Fantastic album. And then the next 3 albums did the same thing. And then Elton was playing stadiums, and that's when it gets frightening, because you go, okay, you can't keep this up. It's not possible to do that. You can't keep having this much success. All you hope for after that is you keep coasting and you keep being creative, and you don't like fall off that bridge, that you cross it. You know, and a lot of people don't, you know, achieve incredible success, and then all of a sudden a year later that's boom, gone, you know. So the best we could hope for is that we remained credible, creative, and at the top of our game. And I think, you know, we've dipped and come back, and I quite honestly, I don't think Elton's ever been stronger than he was on that, you know, the last tour. It was an incredible achievement, and he proved that he's still the best there is. So. Yes, magic box.
And well, the box, I think, is closed.
Oh, okay.
Because we also got another signal that, oh, look, that's very subtle. Very subtle. However, what you were just talking about is not thinking that you would last, or, you know, the legacy. That's why you're here getting the George and Ira Gershwin Prize for Popular Song. We did a little calculation. Get a pen. It's Washington. Pen. A little calculation. George Gershwin died when he was about 39. And when you looked at how long, their first song was not a hit that they did together. No. But they had George and Ira had about 19 years together. When you think about how their songs still resonate with that short period of time, and look at the legacy you have with decades beyond that, your songs are going to resonate for centuries.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, I hope they will, and I think of our songs as hopefully, as being timeless, and what I love about them is the fact that each generation picks up on them again, and in many ways, will reinvent them. But so I think their legacy is that they are timeless. I think there's always an audience for them. They seem to resonate with people over the years. People want to come along and discover the stories they tell, and it's wonderful. One of the most beautiful things about Elton's farewell tour was that you would see, you'd look out at the crowd, and they'd be multi-generational. There'd be grandmothers, there'd be kids that were like 12 or 13 years old singing all of the songs, knowing every word, and their parents and their parents' parents, So I think that's a testament to the quality of the songs and the enjoyment they bring to generations in the past and generations hopefully to come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank all of you.
Thank you, everybody.
The gift. Oh. They've got a gift for you.
Here we go. We have. Can you all hear me? Okay. So, as a thank you, you sit down. Sit down. As a thank you for Bernie, and what we really, really appreciate is the appreciation that he has given us for the collections that we've shown him. And that means the world to us. I mean, we bring in these collections, we care for them, we curate them, and we don't want them just to be on the shelf unappreciated. And this man has really taken them to heart, and we really, really appreciate that. Now, we can't give you the original, but we do have a history of giving facsimiles to people like Bernie. And today we have a facsimile of Ira Gershwin's Our Love Is Here to Stay. So on this side we have the lyric, the first draft type of thing, which you can, and over on this side we have the typescript, typewritten final version. So we hope that you will appreciate and enjoy this. We really
Can I
feel
borrow some of the lines.
Yes. we really equate you with Ira.
Well,
and so
that's pushing it. That's pushing it.
So here's this is for you.
Oh, thank you so
And,
much. Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you again. Thank you.